week later, she's rolling around in Louis Vuitton, bread and money in a bizarre fashion. One video, he was with her. The next video, she's by herself. Then she goes home.
The internet didn't wake up to news. It woke up to a full-blown emotional earthquake. Because what just exploded involving Claressa Shields, Papoose, and Remy Ma isn't just messy, it's the kind of chaos that rewrites narratives, exposes hidden truths, and leaves reputations hanging by a thread. And it all started with 3 words. Not a long statement. Not a carefully crafted response. Just 3 words from Claressa that hit the internet like a match to gasoline. You'll believe anything. That was it. But instead of shutting things down, it ignited everything. Because behind those words was tension. Behind that tone was something personal. And within minutes, fans weren't just reacting, they were digging. Old videos resurfaced. Clips were slowed down. Comments from months ago suddenly started making sense in ways no one expected. And then, the leak dropped. Not a rumor. Not speculation. Alleged messages. Messages that insiders claim show Papoose quietly reconnecting with Remy Ma behind the scenes, away from cameras, away from headlines, away from everything Claressa thought she understood. One line stood out. Maybe we need to talk about everything. And the reply? It's never too late to fix things. That's when everything broke. Because now, this wasn't just gossip. This was possibility. The possibility that while Claressa was publicly defending her relationship, something else was quietly rebuilding in the background. And then came the audio. A voice unverified, unidentified, but confident. He's been talking to both of them. No names. No proof. But the internet didn't need either. Because everyone already knew who both of them meant. And suddenly, this wasn't just a story. It was a storm. Because Claressa didn't stay silent. She came back. Not with denial. Not with calm. But with energy that felt different. Sharper. More personal. And insiders are now saying what we are seeing publicly is only a fraction of what's actually happening behind the scenes. Because there are whispers of confrontations. Of late-night arguments. Of moments that weren't supposed to be recorded. But might have been. And if that recording exists, then what's already exploded online is nothing compared to what's coming next. It didn't begin with a post. It didn't begin with a headline. It began with a gap. A strange, uncomfortable gap in timing that only the most obsessive fans noticed at first, but once they saw it, they couldn't unsee it. Because while Claressa Shields was posting confidently, loudly, almost defiantly about her relationship with Papoose, there were moments where he wasn't there. Not tagged. Not mentioned. Not visible. At first, it meant nothing. People brushed it off. Busy schedules. Different cities. Separate commitments. Normal. But then the timeline started shifting. Because within hours of Claressa posting a video celebrating her man, another clip surfaced from a completely different location. Same night. Same time frame. And in that clip, a man, blurred, distant, but familiar in posture, walking into a building that online detectives quickly linked to a studio space frequently used by Remy Ma. That's when the whispers started. Quiet. Uncertain. But persistent. Because once one person noticed the overlap, everyone else started looking. And the more they looked, the more they found. Old photos. Event appearances. Moments where Papoose and Remy existed in the same orbit, not publicly interacting, but close enough to raise questions no one had asked before. Then came the messages. Not officially confirmed. Not verified. but detailed enough to feel real. Screenshots began circulating, first in small private groups, then exploding onto public timelines. One message allegedly read, "You still don't understand what we had." The reply, "I never stopped understanding." That's when everything shifted. Because now, this wasn't about coincidence. This was about connection. A connection that, if true, had never fully disappeared. Meanwhile, Claressa was still posting. Still smiling. Still presenting a relationship that looked solid from the outside. But insiders say behind that image, something was already cracking. Because according to multiple sources, Claressa had started noticing the same things the internet was now discovering. Late replies. Missed calls. Explanations that didn't quite line up. Nothing obvious. Nothing concrete. But enough. Enough to create doubt. And doubt is where everything begins. Sources claim she didn't confront him immediately. She watched. Observed. Waited. Because reacting without proof, that's noise. But reacting with evidence, that's impact. And then the evidence came. A voice note. Short. Unpolished. But devastating. Allegedly recorded by someone close to the situation, the clip captured a conversation that wasn't meant for public ears. Two voices. One believed to be Papoose. The other, unclear. But the tone. Familiar. Comfortable. And then came the line that insiders say stopped Claressa cold. "I just needed to see her again, that's all." No names. No context. But the implication. Loud. Because her didn't need to be explained. Not anymore. Not with everything else already circulating. And according to insiders, that's when Claressa stopped watching quietly. Because that line. That was enough. That was confirmation. Not of everything. But of something. Something real. Something present. Something she couldn't ignore anymore. And that's when the confrontation happened. Not publicly. Not for cameras. Private. Direct. Explosive. Sources say she didn't ease into it. Didn't ask gentle questions. Didn't give him space to control the narrative. She walked in with one thing. The audio. And she played it. Right in front of him. No warning. No build-up. Just truth. Or at least, what felt like truth. And according to insiders, the moment that clip ended, the room changed. Because instead of immediate denial, there was silence. Again. That same silence that had been showing up in all the wrong moments. And Claressa noticed. Of course she did. Because silence isn't empty. Silence speaks. And in that moment, it said everything. "What is that?" she allegedly asked. Simple. Direct. And impossible to dodge. But instead of answering clearly, sources say Papoose shifted. Not into confession. Into explanation. Talking about context. About misunderstanding. About things being taken out of proportion. And that's when the energy snapped. Because explanations without answers only make things worse. According to insiders, Claressa's voice didn't rise immediately. It dropped. Lower. Sharper. More controlled. "Say her name." That's what she said. And that moment. That's where everything froze. Because asking for a name removes all ambiguity. It forces truth into the open. And according to sources, He didn't say it. Not right away. And that hesitation, that pause, was louder than any admission could have been. Because when someone refuses to say something simple, it usually means that simple thing is the truth they are avoiding. And that's when the confrontation escalated. Fast. Questions turned into accusations. Accusations turned into statements. Statements turned into something deeper. Realization. Because at some point during that exchange, Claressa stopped asking, stopped pushing, stopped trying to get answers, and started understanding what she was already seeing. Because sometimes, you don't need confirmation. You just need enough pieces to see the picture. And according to insiders, that's exactly what happened. Because the next thing she said changed everything. You're still tied to her, aren't you? Not a question. A conclusion. And that shift from asking to knowing, that's where relationships break. Not when doubt appears, but when doubt becomes certainty. Meanwhile, outside that room, the internet was already spiraling. Because just as this confrontation was happening, another leak dropped. This time, a screenshot, allegedly from a contact saved as a one line. Short. Devastating. Maybe we rushed the ending. And the reply. Maybe we did. That was it. But it was enough. Because now, the story wasn't just about overlap. It was about unfinished business. And unfinished business is dangerous. Because it doesn't stay in the past. It pulls everything back with it. Back inside, Claressa had gone quiet again. But not the same kind of quiet as before. This wasn't observation. This wasn't confusion. This was something else. Something colder. Something final. And just when it seemed like the confrontation had reached its peak, his phone buzzed. Again. And this time, he didn't ignore it. He looked at the screen. And that's when everything changed. Because according to insiders, the name that appeared on that notification was the one name Claressa didn't want to see in that moment. And the second she saw his reaction, she knew. Not suspected. Not wondered. Knew. Because whatever message had just come through connected everything. And what happened next is where this story takes a turn no one was ready for. The moment that phone lit up, everything stopped. Not dramatically. Not loudly. But completely. Because the second Claressa Shields saw Papoose glance down at his screen and hesitate, she didn't need to see the name. She felt it. That shift. That subtle, almost invisible change in energy that only happens when something you've been suspecting suddenly becomes real. Who is it? Her voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that doesn't come from peace. It comes from certainty. And according to insiders, he didn't answer right away. Again. That same hesitation. That same pause that had already done damage before. But this time, it hit differently. Because now, everything that had been building, messages, audio, timelines, overlaps, was sitting in that silence. And silence doesn't protect anymore at this stage. It confirms. Sources say Claressa didn't wait. She moved. Fast. Closing the distance between them before he could react, before he could lock the phone, before he could control what she was about to see. And then, she saw it. The name. Remy Ma. Right there. On his screen. Attached to a message that hadn't even been opened yet. But it didn't need to be. Because the damage wasn't in the message. It was in the fact that it was there at all. At that exact moment. Right after everything that had already come out. That's when everything broke. Completely. Not quietly this time. Not controlled. Explosive. Sources say her voice rose instantly, cutting through the room with a force that made everything else disappear. So this is what we are doing now. No build-up. No filter. Just impact. And the way she said it. Not like she was asking. Like she was calling it out. Because at that point, there was nothing left to piece together. It was all there. Right in front of her. And Papoose finally reacted. But not how anyone expected. Because instead of denying, he tried to explain. Again. Talking about timing. About things being complicated. About trying to handle everything the right way. And that's when Claressa snapped. Because explanations, at this point, sound like excuses. Handle what? She fired back. Sharp. Direct. Unforgiving. And that question hung in the air. Because answering it would mean saying everything out loud. And according to insiders, he didn't. Not clearly. Not fully. Just fragments. Half sentences. Pieces of a story that didn't quite connect. And that's when the second wave hit. Because while this confrontation was unfolding, outside that room, the internet had just detonated again. A new clip dropped. Not a screenshot. Not text. Video. Grainy. Late-night footage. A car pulling up outside a building. A figure stepping out. And fans immediately locked in. Because the person in that video moved like Papoose. Walked like Papoose. And the location. Allegedly tied to a studio space linked to Remy Ma. Within minutes, the clip went viral. Within minutes, timelines exploded. And within minutes, the narrative shifted from speculation to something that felt dangerously close to confirmation. Back inside, Claressa's phone started blowing up. Notifications stacking. Mentions flooding. Clips being sent. And the moment she saw that video, everything escalated again. Because now it wasn't just something she was dealing with privately. It was public. Every second. Every detail. Out there. For everyone. And that changes everything. Because betrayal in private is one thing. Betrayal under a spotlight. That's something else entirely. Sources say she turned the phone around. Showed him the video. No words. Just showed it. And that silence. That was louder than anything she could have said. Because now, the evidence wasn't just alleged. It was visible. And he saw it too. Which meant there was no way to spin it anymore. No way to redirect. No way to minimize what was happening. That's when the energy shifted again. Not into chaos. Into something colder. Because Claressa stopped yelling. Stopped reacting. Stopped pushing. And when someone goes from explosive to still, that's when things get dangerous. Because it means they've reached a conclusion. Sources say she stepped back. Looked at him. Really looked. And said something that insiders describe as the moment everything changed. You never left her, did you? Not loud. Not emotional. But final. Because that sentence didn't leave room for denial. It framed the entire situation. Not as something new. But as something ongoing. Something unresolved. Something that had been there the whole time. And his response wasn't immediate. Again. That silence. But this time, it wasn't confusion. It wasn't hesitation. It felt like acceptance. And that was worse. Because when someone stops trying to deny something, it usually means they've already accepted that it's true. Meanwhile, online, things were completely out of control. Fans picking sides. Clips being dissected frame by frame. Old interviews resurfacing. Moments where Papoose spoke about loyalty to Remy now being replayed with a completely different meaning. Celebrities posting cryptic reactions. Subtle, but enough to fuel the fire. And then, the final leak hit. The one that pushed everything over the edge. An audio clip. Longer this time. Clearer. 3 voices. All raised. All overlapping. And one line that cut through everything else. Believed to be Claressa's voice. Why are you still choosing her? And the response. Immediate. Sharp. And devastating. A voice widely believed to be Remy Ma. Because I'm still his wife. That was it. But it was enough. Because that line didn't just confirm tension. It confirmed hierarchy. It confirmed that this situation wasn't equal. Wasn't balanced. Wasn't resolved. And Claressa was right in the middle of it. And just when it seemed like everything had already exploded, one more detail surfaced. Quiet. But devastating. Because insiders are now claiming that confrontation wasn't the first time all 3 had been in the same space. There was another meeting. Earlier. Private. And what happened during that moment may explain everything we are seeing now. That earlier meeting wasn't supposed to matter. That's what everyone thought. That's what everyone assumed. But the deeper this situation unraveled, the more insiders began pointing back to one moment, quiet, private, almost invisible at the time, that may have set everything in motion long before the internet ever caught on. Because weeks before the leaks, before the clips, before the chaos swallowed everything whole, Claressa Shields, Papoose, and Remy Ma were reportedly in the same place. Not publicly. Not announced. A controlled setting. A private gathering where cameras weren't supposed to be rolling and conversations weren't meant to leave the room. And for a while, nothing came out. No leaks. No whispers. Nothing. Until now. Because according to multiple insiders, what happened in that room didn't explode immediately. It simmered. And now, pieces of it are finally surfacing. Fragments. Details. Enough to paint a picture that feels unsettling. Because the way it's being described. There wasn't chaos at first. There wasn't shouting. There wasn't confrontation. There was tension. The kind you can feel without anyone saying a word. Sources claim Claressa walked into that room already aware of the dynamic, already sensing that something wasn't fully resolved between Papoose and Remy, but still holding onto the idea that whatever existed was in the past. That belief didn't last long. Because according to those accounts, the moment all 3 were in the same space, something shifted. Not dramatically. Subtly. But enough. Because body language started speaking before anyone else did. Papoose? Caught in between. Literally and emotionally. Remy? Calm. Too calm. Comfortable in a way that didn't match the situation. And Claressa? Watching. Reading. Picking up on things that didn't need to be explained out loud. And then, It happened. A conversation. Not explosive. Not loud. But direct. According to insiders, Claressa asked a simple question. Not accusatory. Not aggressive. Just honest. Is everything between y'all really done? And that question changed everything. Because answering it required truth. Not performance. Not deflection. Truth. Sources say Papoose hesitated. Of course he did. Because hesitation had already become a pattern. But this time, it didn't stay silent. He answered. Not clearly. Not cleanly. But enough. Enough to suggest that done wasn't the right word. Enough to suggest that something still existed. Something unfinished. And that's when Remy spoke. Calm. Steady. Unshaken. And according to insiders, what she said in that moment is what reframed everything. We are not strangers. That line. Simple. But devastating. Because it didn't claim ownership. It didn't accuse. It didn't escalate. It just stated reality. And that reality was enough. Because being not strangers implies connection. History. Familiarity that doesn't disappear just because circumstances change. And in that moment, Claressa understood something she hadn't fully allowed herself to accept before. This wasn't over. It had never been over. And that realization didn't explode right there. It settled. Quietly. Dangerously. Because instead of reacting emotionally, she adjusted. Sources say she didn't argue. Didn't push. Didn't create a scene. She observed. And that observation is what led to everything that came after. Because from that moment forward, every interaction looked different. Every delay felt intentional. Every silence felt loaded. And now, weeks later, with leaks flooding the internet, with videos surfacing, with audio clips exposing fragments of conversations, that earlier meeting looks like the beginning. Not the middle. Not the end. The beginning. Because everything we are seeing now was already present then. Just hidden. Just controlled. Just not public yet. Meanwhile, back in the present, the internet is completely out of control. Clips looping. Threads exploding. Fans dividing into camps that refuse to back down. Some defending Claressa, saying she stepped into something unresolved and got caught in the fallout. Others defending Remy, saying a marriage, even a complicated one, doesn't just disappear because someone new arrives. And then there are those watching Papoose, questioning everything. Every silence. Every move. Every absence. Because at the center of all this chaos, he hasn't fully spoken. And that silence is doing more damage than anything else. Because when two narratives collide, and the person in the middle doesn't clarify, the public fills in the blanks. And right now, the blanks are being filled fast. But just when it seemed like everything had already reached its peak, one final twist hit. Because late last night, Claressa Shields finally spoke again. Not in a rant. Not in a meltdown. But in something far more controlled. A video. Short. Direct. And chillingly calm. She looked straight into the camera. No music. No distractions. Just her voice. And she said, "I'm not confused anymore." That was the opening. And immediately, everything went silent. Because confusion implies questions. And she just removed all of them. She continued. When you stop ignoring what you see, everything starts making sense. That line. Instantly clipped. Reposted. Analyzed. Because it confirms something without saying it directly. She wasn't guessing anymore. She wasn't asking. She knew. And then came the final line. The one that froze everything. I'm choosing me, before I get chosen last. And just like that, the narrative shifted again. Because that wasn't anger. That wasn't reaction. That was decision. And decisions end things. Or start something new. But either way, they change everything. And as that video spread across every platform, as fans dissected every word, as theories multiplied even faster than before, one question remained. Where does Papoose stand? Because right now, two women have spoken. One has reclaimed her position. The other has chosen herself. And the man in the middle still hasn't given a clear answer. But insiders are saying that answer already exists. And when it finally comes out, it won't just confirm what happened. It will reveal who this was really about all along. And if that moment hits, nothing about this story stays the same. And if you think this is where it ends, you haven't been paying attention. Because what just unfolded between Claressa Shields, Papoose, and Remy Ma is still evolving, right now, in real time. Every hour, new clips surface. Every minute, new theories take over. And the truth? It's still moving. What you've seen so far, the messages, the audio, the confrontations, that's just the surface. The real story is in what hasn't been fully revealed yet. The conversations we haven't heard. The decisions that haven't been announced. The moment where everything finally becomes undeniable. So if you're watching this thinking you'll catch up later, don't. Because by the time you come back, this entire situation could look completely different, and you'll be trying to piece together a story that's already exploded past you. Hit like right now if you felt that shift, if you saw those moments where things stopped being rumors and started feeling real. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Who do you believe? And what do you think is really going on behind the scenes? And most important, subscribe. Because when the next update drops, and it will, you do not want to miss it. Not the receipts. Not the reactions. Not the moment everything finally connects. Stay locked in. Because this isn't just celebrity news anymore. This is a story that's still unfolding, and you're watching it happen live.